Okay, so everyone, so we're going to start the next session. So the next session is on social impact careers in 2025. The first thing we're going to do is Amin Rahimian, who's right here, is going to be giving a talk about having a career with like a social impact. So Amin is an assistant professor at the University of Pittsburgh. So he's leading there the social technical systems lab. He's also part of the intelligent systems program and the Institute of Cyber Law, Policy and Security. So he does quite a few different things. He works on the intersection of networks, data, and decision science. So he's borrowing tools from applied probability, statistics, algorithms, decision-making, game theory, and he studies like the challenges on the inference and intervention design complex, large social technical systems, among like many other things. He has many applications to like many different areas of research and like public health and networks, e-commerce, collective decision, cyber infrastructure, future warfare, so like many different things. And Amin now is going to tell us about his career path, his research, and the advice that he has for you.
Thank you, Juba. Okay, so yeah, it was a different type of talk that I would typically give or would like to. So it was a good opportunity for me to also think about these things. And you would see it's not really well formulated. So I would really appreciate any interaction and questions or stopping me at some point. So I started my path in control theory, thinking about feedback control. Feedback control is a way of stabilizing a dynamic process and making it, for example, track an output. So you may want some dynamic process to have an output that is set at some value, and you can observe that value. You can compare it with the target that you want, and then you can generate feedback. It's a old idea, but you can keep the track of it in the complex systems as well. And I spent quite some time at the start of my path in science thinking about feedback control, a question of stabilization. So a process on its own, maybe the output can be growing large or deviate from a target. And so you can have this feedback loop to stabilize a process. Later on, I looked at what happens. We have a network of these systems, so you put them together, but you still have the same issues of stability, and you can think about network feedback control in a network setup, and specifically what goes wrong in terms of stability and other properties when some nodes break. So removal of a node, removal of the edges, this type of shocks that you can give to a network can also help you reason about the broader understanding of the dynamics of network systems. So these were the angles that I took early on in when I was just getting started in science. So for me, at that point, science was writing papers. So I was happy to be able to write these papers and then read other papers, extend them in meaningful ways, and that took a while. So it was around 6 years of 6, 7 years of my early career that was about these type of issues. But as I started my PhD, I took also courses in the other fields other than, so I started as a control theorist. So I wanted to do control theory as a PhD student, but I started taking courses in economics, statistics, probability, and those courses was very helpful in helpful in the sense of making thinking more deeply about what does it mean to do science. So what is it other than writing papers, basically. So yeah, and this is a picture about a probability professor that I had and was quite determining in the decisions that I made later on. Yeah, so he's going through the pi lambda theorem on a sidewalk at that point. So I don't know if anyone has heard of pi lambda theorem. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's so yeah. sometime in the middle of my PhD, I started asking, so these papers, that can they be of broad interest? So you can explain to someone the story of your paper. Are they such that they would be interested to hear your story? So it was to some extent a matter of storytelling. So, and it just, I volunteered myself to give something called Penn iTalk. I did my PhD at the University of Pennsylvania, and then they had a program called iTalk that looks like a TED Talk. And it was a strange thing to volunteer for, especially for me, but that was kind of my application for that program.
I believe that my proposed talk entitled Learning Without Recall should make a good presentation in the Penai Talks venue. This is because I consider a problem of social learning that is traditionally discussed in economics literature, and it has a particularly interdisciplinary flavor that appeals to the audience. The main results concern the modeling of behavior in social networks, and therefore the audience should find them easy to relate to, while the talk itself can give them an opportunity to appreciate how mathematical modeling can help capture some essential features in a reality as uncertain as human behavior.
The story that I was trying to tell at that point was, or the idea of making this more broadly of interest, so that this is not just technical results to a very specific community. It was that, well, when we are trying to understand human behavior, so it should be of interest to everyone. And the context there was decision making in social network and in groups, and there was two ways of making those decisions, Bayesian and non-Bayesian learning. And this is what I studied in depth during my PhD. And it turned out to be a deep literature with a fantastic history in economics. And so I dig deep, and the more I dug there, the more interesting it got. So it was enough to get hooked for a PhD thesis. And even to this day, I still keep track of that literature. And like now, 10 years on, I still publish every now and then in those on those topics. So yeah, that was my PhD about group decision making and learning in group and social learning. So yeah, we had a paper that was pointing out the difficulty of Bayesian decision making groups in operation research, and also other papers that think about heuristic decisions that avoid those difficulties from a Bayesian perspective. And so, yeah, that was the story. But yeah, it has stuck with me. So now it's been almost 10 years. So Yushin, a PhD student that we is here, is still we can still say more about those type of topics. For example, what happens when you have this model of the sequential learning, people coming into coming in a sequence, taking actions, and those actions, they can cause a herding, like an information cascade, and that herding can be avoided subject to privacy guarantees. Figuring out the nuances of these type of insights and conclusions is going to be technical and fascinating and interesting, and it's something that I think I would continue to do as I get the opportunity for. So that's maybe one thing that I wanted to try to convey with this, that there are these ideas, trends, and that you may get hooked on, and they stay with you for years, maybe 20 years, 10 years, yeah. After my PhD, I did a postdoctoral at the Institute for Data Systems Society at MIT. It was around 2016. Some of you may remember things like Cambridge Analytica and the works about Compass. They all were coming up around the same time, and there was a lot of interest in understanding data systems in society and implications of algorithmic decision making in society. And the Institute for Data Systems Society was just getting shape there, and I was fortunate to join that institute in those early years of its starting years. as a postdoc. I worked with these two amazing scientists, Dean Eccles and Elkhan Moussaoui, and I did my PhD with another amazing scientist who's now at MIT also, Alijat Babai. So yeah, I was fortunate to work with them, with other collaborators, and at that point in my career, I was settled on kind of operation research as a field that I want to be invested in, just because I had a great experience in that first paper that was in, so Bayesian decision making in groups is hard. When I went through the review process, the culture of the community, I was really impressed. There was big differences between some of my prior experiences and the quality of the reviews there. So I thought, well, that's the community that I think I can feel comfortable and stay. So those type of thoughts about the nature of the discipline that you're contributing to the community that you're publishing in, these are other issues that I hope can strike some thought for you as you are thinking about your own careers. These are going to be very serious issues that would determine the sustainability and the future of your career. So these are things that I think, especially as you get involved with different disciplines and broader impacts of the works that have broader social impacts. I think the issue of the community that you can prosper in and the specific disciplines that you're contributing to consistently would be something that would end up resurfacing in different ways at different stages of your work. So during the postdoc, I worked on these two papers. One of them ended up at Operation Research. The other one, you can see it has taken a long time. So it started, the first version went 2018, but it took almost 6 years. Part of it was during the pandemic. I got focused on some works related to the pandemic, statistics that can be helpful to the pandemic. And I also went on the job market in 2020. So some of those are because of those type of breaks in the history of the work. But another one was that this was a work that you had to swim up the river because we were, so there was this idea that there is simple contagion and complex contagion. Simple contagion spread through an independent cascade of behavior. So edges independently spread behavior, and complex contagion relies on reinforcement and a threshold behavior, and so highly correlated behavior across the network. And these two are going to spread differently in different structures. We were arguing against that with so the evidence that we go for, this is mostly applied probability and measuring the rate of spreads on networks. But so to formulate those arguments and then ending it in the audience, such as nature, human behavior, it took it takes some different type of effort than you would get from a common paper, say that you're. So this is another thing to maybe try to think. Some of the work that you do, you may end up requiring much more effort for the same results as some other work. So then that's if you're trying to be super strategic about your effort and the return that you get on your effort in, say, the short time that you have until you go to the job market, then these are some of the things that you may have in mind, that whether the paper, although you believe in it and the outcome of your work, how long does it take to get that return? And where does it put you in terms of, in a competitive job market? So these are yeah. So hopefully this may ring some bells and maybe something that can we can flesh out more in the panel. But so and I was mentioning in the middle of not in the middle, around the end of my postdoc, there was a pandemic, so I was. Yeah, I was happy and grateful to have the opportunity to contribute to some of those pandemic works, but they're also such that they end up being clearly and meaningfully impactful. So in terms of both the venues that they end up in and also the subject matter that you're investigating at that point is human lives. So I joined University of Pittsburgh as an assistant professor in the industrial engineering department in 2020. And by then, because of the time that I had to spend at IDSS at MIT, I had this vision of socio-technical systems. And now, and even then, yeah, it is not a very unique or specific vision, but I was, so that was kind of how I was thinking about my establishing my career as an assistant professor, as to pick up problems that involve technical systems. So things, for example, like algorithmic decision making that is relying on a online platform, and that online platform comes with a lot of technical details, but the societal impact and the societal context of those technologies are important factors when we are studying them, investigating them, and we would have tools to look at different aspects of and implications of those. So I continued some of the works that I was familiar with, issues related to how people learn from each other, social learning, and how it affects uh, uh, things such as decision making in online social networks, for example, the algorithmic mediation. And so these are the areas that I was already familiar with. So it was easy to get started on those, even as an assistant professor, as you're dealing with the change in the environment and scope. So it's always helpful to have those playing grounds to allow you to get established. But in the new environment, I was also able to uh, find other areas. So one of the major areas that I got involved with was the opioid epidemic through a project with the CDC. So those projects are mostly about trying to impact policy. In this case, there is a policy to mitigate the opioid epidemic, but it also provides opportunities to look at the issues that I have been looking at during the past years leading to those projects. So although I'm still contributing to the specific issues of policy that the projects are targeting, like in this case, there is allocation of resources and the best mitigation strategies and the best interventions. I get also the opportunity to ask questions that are more substantively related to my prior work. So issues of social contagion and social network contexts of opioid epidemic, other behaviors related to the opioid epidemic, for example, broader substance use issues and suicide. And so, yeah, these are topics that as I started the assistant professor job, you will have more opportunities, more resources, and how do you manage those resources to lead to outcomes that over time become meaningful, both in shaping your long-term career and also in terms of now impact on the society. So before going to the issues of the impact, so yeah, I also got involved in several, the privacy was an issue that I get involved in, not because of a specific project, like the public health was mostly because of the CDC project. So the resources was there. It was a matter of seeing how we can shape these resources in the most meaningful manner. In the case of privacy, I think it was mostly out of intellectual curiosity and the socio-technical aspects of privacy, that it was a problem that involved a lot of new technologies that are shaping our impression of privacy, but also it is a deep societal value, and it's changing as a result of technology was worth understanding more. So yeah, I was able to to look at those issues, and I'm still looking at those through different papers. And social learning and network contagion, these were ideas that I had picked up early on in my PhD, and they have stayed with me. So even nowadays, we still have projects that build on and deepen those understandings. So yeah, it goes back to the idea that you would want to have these ideas that stay with you. I think that's what makes the career as a career of an intellectual a meaningful career, because that comes from the depths of those ideas that yeah. So now to the issue of the impact, and I think the practicalities of the job market and channels for impact. So that was tough, and I think that's the main thing that Juba wanted me to talk about. So yeah, I try, but yeah, please pitch in and see. So when I was thinking about, so it a little bit reminded me of that question that I asked myself sometime in the middle of my PhD, that so I'm writing these papers, can they be of interest, of broad interest? So I know that these papers are publishable, they're going to get reviewed, and they're going to be appreciated by the community of the reviewers. But can I tell a story that makes them a little bit more of interest to broader society? So now, so that was, I think, an issue about the stories, but this is not about the stories anymore. Can what we do have broader impacts? It's not about interest. So when I was thinking about impact, then maybe what are the dimensions of impact? We will have impact on our scientific disciplines. That is, I think, the essence of our profession. So that is unavoidable. Then we have the opportunity, an important opportunity to impact individuals that we come across. Maybe many of you who are listening to this as students, you actually have the opportunity to impact your mentors. So sometimes you maybe think about it the other way, but actually you have a lot of impact on your mentors. But yeah, in our position as a senior PhD student, later on as assistant professors, you have very clear opportunities to impact your mentees. We teach classes, and these are valuable channels for impacting students. We have co-authors, we have colleagues, and all of those interactions, I think we should regard them as important channels for impact. So these are on the individuals. And then we do our work in institutions, and those institutions are important. I think, like, for example, University of Pittsburgh, it has been a great channel for example, we have PitCyber, we have intelligent systems program. These are all things that are, maybe we take them for granted, but it takes a lot of effort to make these healthy working institutions and programs within an institution, and say an interdisciplinary department, the complexities of that. So if you have an ability to change your institution for the better, that can be, I think, something not to ignore. Institutions are very important. These are what allows us to prosper as professionals. And then we have the opportunity to impact our professions. For example, what Juba is doing in terms of organizing the doctoral consortium. Yeah, so these are clear ways to impact other people in our profession. There could be our colleagues, for example, what you do for your, say, informs or other community that you're a member of, or it could be an impact on, say, more junior people, or sometimes more senior people, depending on. So these are maybe later on, it would not show up too much as a PhD student, but later on you will refer to this as service, and that is, I think it brings me to the channels for impact. So yeah, the service that we do as part of as one of the dimensions of our life as academics, that automatically will have impact over. I think the most related to YAMO and where we are here, we will have opportunities to impact our local communities, and the country, maybe the broader world, the collection of countries, and through policies, through the products of our research. So that is maybe something that hopefully may come up more in the panel. I don't feel like I'm in a position to talk too much about those type of impacts. Maybe other people will be in much better position. Yeah, so maybe I can give you an example. So there was, I got the opportunity to teach a course called Data for Social Good, and as a result of the course, we would have projects, and some of those projects, in the scoping of those projects, we would work with the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center, and it was an opportunity to connect with data that's about local communities and make conclusions that are relevant to the local communities as part of a course. So, but this is going to be a complicated issue, like the impact that you can have on local community, but also maybe the most important issue. So it's just because it's complicated doesn't mean, yeah. So these are the dimensions of impact. And then for the channels of impact, I was thinking that research, teaching, and service, which was the foundations of how we define our professional activities. Like I don't remember it being that clear to me when I was a PhD student, but it immediately became very clear as I started as an assistant professor, because we need to write these annual reports, and then you get really evaluated on these dimensions. Like the research that you have done, it could be just as simple as counting papers, but sometimes it's deeper than that. The teaching that you do is evaluated on the service. So that I think as we put effort, like professional effort on research, teaching, and service, we also try to think about the impact that we can make in through those three channels. And we write a lot as academics, so sometimes the impact may come from writing maybe not papers, but some policy piece or other opportunities to writing for venues that are not necessarily academic, and presenting in venues that are not conferences, not necessarily academic. But hopefully, yeah, this will maybe again something that can be discussed more in the panel. And finally, I think to the main point, impact versus career. So that's where we get into issues of job market. Yeah, at the end, you want to make sure that you have a job, that what you do makes you hireable in a competitive market. Some of the challenges that immediately came to my mind, and again, this is not something that I think about a lot. Actually, I mean, thankfully, I got a job, so maybe that's why I didn't think about it too much. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, thanks to Juba, I had to think about it. First thing that came to my mind is interdisciplinarity. That is going to be a challenge, and you need to, I think about it carefully head on. If you ignore it, it would come up, especially in academic job market. So as I think as we think about the impact of our work, we are bound to involve multiple disciplines. And what it means in terms of an academic career, it means at the end, you're going to be evaluated, you're going to be find job in a department, you're going to be evaluated through the criteria of a discipline. So as you work across disciplines, how does that evaluation is going to work? It's something that you need to think carefully about. I don't know if I have a solution or advice to give on that, but maybe the most important advice is that not to ignore it. Don't think it is a trivial issue, or you think will just happen as long as I publish, I'm good. So it's something that you need to think carefully about, like where you're going to find a job, in which community, and what are the criteria in that community. As I was thinking about the interdisciplinarity, I think centers and institutes and programs are going to be important and helpful in facilitating interdisciplinary work. Things, for example, at the University of Pittsburgh, we have PitCyber, Euro is on the panel. Those are very helpful in terms of facilitating interdisciplinary work. We have intelligent system program that's by definition interdisciplinary. So Yeah, and then the publication venues. So if some of the publication venues like Nature, Science, they are unquestionably there. So yeah, but we cannot always publish in them all the time. So as you think about the interdisciplinary nature of your work, you need to think and identify publication venues that would help advance your careers, how your peers are going to evaluate you and decide whether to give you a job and eventually like promote you as you have a job. Um, and I think, yeah, so you was said there's interest in understanding the funding. Funding didn't seem so if you're doing work that is prioritizing its social and broader impact, I think sometimes actually funding may make it easier for funding because by definition that work is designed to change things, and this is something that is appreciated a lot by different investors. It could be government agencies that are investing in certain areas. Uh, so yeah, I'm happy to engage questions that you may have on funding issues, but that's not necessarily a problematic thing. But one thing is there is a before and after in the job market, and sometimes it's hard for me to a little bit put myself back into those days before finding a job. But so yeah, it is once you land a job, then you can maybe relax and uh, think like take time to think more deeply. So and that before and after is basically so some of the decisions maybe that you make at this stage to be able to land a job, they may yeah. So you can reevaluate them later on and change them. So and this is not just about finding a job at different stages of the career. So it would be good to think to just remember that it's not forever. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add, but happy to engage. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks again, Amin. So what I want to do now is I want to invite all of our panelists to come here. And basically what we're going to be discussing is we're going to be following up on basically all of the possible ways you can potentially make a social impact as an academic, what it means to be a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary academic who's working in fields that are trying to have social impact. What does it mean what kind of impact can you have? What kind of inside and outside collaborations are going to be useful to actually create that social impact career? So yes, everyone, feel free to sit down. And so basically, the first thing I would like to do is to ask all of the panelists to actually introduce themselves and give like a 2-3 minute piece of advice on having a career with social impact. Who wants to start?
Okay, hi, my name is Janet B. Fofang. I'm a postdoc at the Learning Research and Development Center at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm a learning scientist, and I study computational mediation in learning, teaching and learning in interdisciplinary context and community context, or across contexts too.
So I talked a lot already. So
Sure. My name is Ryan Shi. I am an assistant professor in the computer science department at University of Pittsburgh. And I started the job roughly 1.5 years ago. And before that, I was doing my PhD at CMU, just across the street. And my research is on sequential decision making and multi-agent systems, broadly speaking, in the area of AI for social good. And yeah, I think I would start with a couple of comments I want to make about, in general, the social impact career in academia, which is one of the advice I got from one of my mentors back when I was a student is that there are multiple ways you can survive and excel in the communities. But you either become someone who does something the best, or you become someone who does something the first. So everyone can make their own choices, but I think personally speaking, I really enjoy doing something that not necessarily a lot of people have done it. And then most of the time it's pretty rewarding. There's some variance, some risk, but as long as you are a bit smart about it or strategic about it, usually things end up pretty well. So I'll stop here and yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yulin. I'm a professor in the School of Computing and Information. And also I'm a research director at the PCyber, the Institute for Cyber Law Policy and Security. First I will say about my research in general. So my research is in the field of computational social science and network science, where I specialize in analyzing network and text and narrative data that capture large-scale human behavior in the online space, particularly from social media. And so I direct a lab called PIT, Computational Social Dynamic Lab. And so our work is in the intersection of technology, computation, and civic engagement. So we want to contribute to two scientific areas. One is more about human AI collaboration, where we want to think about how to design a system that help people to work with algorithm and to overcome each other's blind spot. The other focus that in our lab is information and influence dynamic, where we try to understand the interconnection and try to understand how to fairly measure and identify the interconnection between online activities and offline confrontation or political outcomes. This has been my research passion. And so a little bit about my trajectory. It takes a long route to become the current version of myself. So I was trained in computer science for my PhD. And now I identify myself as a computational social scientist when I work with a political scientist in my postdoc. And there are a few reasons why I changed from computer science to computational social science. And the bigger one is that at the moment, I start feeling that I have the potential to develop algorithms to uncover social patterns. That's the moment I become unsatisfied with the way I approach the question. So I'm no longer interested in creating tools, but rather I found myself more interested in people, human being, human thinking, and social patterns, network patterns, social networking, and so on. And I realized the method that I've been mastered myself is not enough. And that's why I took a route and then start searching for an alternative path. And I was very lucky that to have the opportunity to work with David Lazar. So he's one of the earliest computational social scientists and the author of the landmark paper on computational social sciences. And so the postdoc years is one of the best moments in my research life where I eager to learn read a lot across discipline and eager to go to different conferences, different talks to learn to be a social scientist and to build a social science mindset. So I feel like later on this learning, this process has a great benefit in complement my computational brand. But anyway, I'll start here. It's too long to talk about my story.
So I did an introduction, and then maybe I'll talk about my story, my journey right now. I started off as an electrical engineering teacher. I did a master's in a bachelor's and a master's in electrical engineering, and then I added some pedagogy to that. And that gave me a leeway to be able to teach electrical engineering courses, both for vocational and university undergrad students. So I taught electrical engineering courses for about 18 to 20 years. And then I took a PhD in learning sciences at the University of Maryland at College Park. In my discipline, the learning sciences, I was focused in integrating computational mediated learning across disciplines from any grade level and across contexts. So I heard about the whole housing conversation here. And across all of that, as a learning scientist, I was thinking hard in my head, how come there is no conversation about how we are engaging in teaching people in understanding the cause to the effect, why they're losing houses, and how communities that are segregated, what is the conversation in these communities, how these red lines appear, and how people move between the lines. So redlining, there's people who leave from low sometimes and go to safer communities. And there's people who lose everything and then go backwards. There's that movement. And in between those two movements, there is a conversation that has to do sometimes with education, sometimes with the patterns, sometimes with the learning. I heard one of the speakers saying, when you're paying your rent 50% of your earnings, then you're in the danger zone. Now, we have algorithms that are also determining how these decisions are made on people. And then the human factors of it, like that's policy pushing these algorithms to have these effects. On the other side, these algorithms also have the power to push the knowledge to these people to understand how these effects are going to happen, how the patterns will display, how they would show in front of them. Use case. I was having a conversation with my friends on the other table where I told them I originally come from Cameroon, and if you Google recently in my country, there is a almost 94-year-old president that is trying to get himself re-elected as a president. So 7 years back, this would have been okay for a lot of Cameroonians, because there was no much power of the media and information and communication. Cameroonians have mostly lived under an authoritarian, repressive, sometimes impossible to think about power-hungry regime. This means information was one state media, right? So you would not know until the TV or the national radio tells you something. Now, with the democracy that these algorithms have brought, people have other sources of information that is counter telling them things that they should know, how they should behave, and how they should prepare. So, in the face of an elections, populations' civic duty became each person's responsibility because they self-educated using the same algorithms that is used to disinform them. They use the same algorithms to counter disinformation. So each person who voted came out of the polling station with clear information about what the results of their polling stations were and who won in their polling stations. So communities were able to fight power through grassroots data, tools, and skills that was posted systematically online, back to back, polling station to polling station, to counteract the dominant narrative from the main powerhouse. So you see, teaching and learning in every one of these processes in deeply interdisciplinary ways. We could see communities that use their data science, experiential data science skills in full display. There were communities that wrote numbers on the ground with on sand and took pictures and collated this information to be able to communicate what works for them. So this is me saying that at all levels, education in highly interdisciplinary ways is what we're going to see would give the jobs. So in my work, we do integrate data science, AI, and all other computationally mediated contexts and concepts into disciplinary subjects. Right now, I'm actually teaching and doing research at the School of Policy, where we are integrating data science, experiential data science into policy lessons. So there's opportunities across the board when we have all of these interdisciplinary skills. We could either be teaching or we could be designing interventions, teaching and learning interventions, and even communication to nonprofits. Or I think I usually see, because I want to get into academia, probably I'm ignoring some of them, but I see all the time this ads being pushed at the NASA to be able to, people who come to museums and want to learn about science and technology, who want to learn about aircraft, who want to learn about all the interdisciplinary things that happen in science and technology. There's jobs for that. There's people who are looking for learning design in private companies to be able to upskill and reskill workers in the age of data science and AI. There's jobs in those spaces. I see jobs being pushed at me even in the medical field, where they're reskilling and retooling their staff in interdisciplinary learning, AI, data science skills. So I think that it's not like, I don't know, the job market is not very good. I'm not selling an illusion here, but I know that there's opportunities when sometimes we have these cross-disciplinary skills. And if you're in the field of engineering like me, you would know that you become very versatile because there's so many things that the foundational skills in engineering can put to the table. So thank you.
All right, so one thing that I want to actually ask all of you guys is, well, we're at emo right here. A lot of people here care about social impact, and we have a lot of students in the room. Many of them are probably still deciding what they want to do next. And if they want to become a professor, go to academia, go to industry, go work for a nonprofit or foundation. What made most of you guys decide to go to the academic route? In what way do you think that mostly benefited your ability to do social impact? Sorry. Yeah, I'm saying so like there is many different ways that you could have social impact. You can work as an academic, but you could also work in industry, you could work for a nonprofit, you could work for a foundation. It's like one thing that kind of like really attracted you about academia and allowed you to do this work. Like what would you say to someone who is soon going to be on the job market and is trying to decide how to kind of like have the social impact they want, how to decide where to go?
So maybe I can ask a question. How many of you feel like you are not very fit in your research community? Like you are very different from your peers. Okay, great. So these people are better positioned to go to academia. And for other people where you feel like a little bit similar and a little bit different from your peers, you are like partially fit in academia and partially fit in the industry. So I, being in the both industry as a visiting professor and doing lots of intern myself, and also in academia, I feel industry prefer people that have lots of skills, multi skills, and can adapt to lots of different goals and quickly adapt and then quickly learn different skills and use your tools at hand to create values. For academia, the first time I hear the term like a discipline homeless, I feel like, oh, that's me. Because when I was PhD, I feel like I wasn't very similar to many peers in my community. And I try to, I want to be part of the community, and I try to, I want to contribute and I want to be recognized in the community that I start. And then over time, I realized the community that I thought I belong to didn't even exist. So looking back, if I have the chance to talk to the early version of myself, I want to tell the PhD student, it's perfectly fine. It's totally okay if you don't have a fixed identity to some discipline, because academia actually value the uniqueness. So instead of worrying how to put yourself into certain community, I would suggest that you use the energy to develop a better narrative and think deeply how you are different, why you are different from others, and then develop a narrative to present yourself better and more articulate your value and your belief. And that would make you better fit and better position for academia job.
So I feel like we're at a time now that there is a lot of things that are shaping the job market. There is a lot of technology. There's realities that we would like to probably navigate the world with those realities in mind. Like there is I feel like I worked 25 years ago. I started working maybe 25 years ago. And the world of work today and 10, 25 years ago is not the same. So choosing that the freedom to, or the luxury to just choose and say, I want to be academia or I want to be in industry, I don't think it's no longer as affordable. I mean, that's my opinion. I may be wrong, depending on what areas you find yourself in. There is definitely disciplines where you can find a plethora of jobs at this time, while in other disciplines you may just have to have only academia as your only option. That's reality. In some conferences, I've met colleagues whose in their disciplines completely there are no jobs, so they can only teach, sometimes even as adjuncts, because the offers in some of those disciplines are they shrunk. The market is not there. So realistically, sometimes we want to follow the market. We want to follow the best offers. So reskilling, upskilling, all of those things is also sometimes reality that we have to put in perspective and just listen to the market itself. There's something that the job market is saying at this time that we must not lose sight of.
Yeah, I think I just want to add some really simple reason for why I chose my current path, which is I don't feel like I can work under a manager. I think that's at least part of the reason for a lot of people who choose the academic path. And I think without a manager, you are carrying greater risk of your own career, but you also have a higher ceiling of your own career. So a lot of people told me before I start the faculty job that a faculty job is one of the loneliest career you can ever have as a tech person, which certainly is true in some aspect, but that kind of being alone in some sense gives you more time to reflect on what you really want to do. And for me personally, I've spent some time, of course, in tech as interns and also spent some time full-time in the nonprofit world. And I think in my current position, I have the most resources to pursue the stuff I like. And I think that's kind of the important considerations from my side.
Yeah. So I don't think I have something too specific to add, but from my own perspective also, I think that as an academic, you have the luxury to live the life of an intellectual, and sometimes we can't, but even as an academic, because there are requirements of any job, just like, so that's just how the world works, but more than other jobs. So this is something that sometimes we take for granted, but it's a luxury.
All right. Sorry, my voice is breaking down. I was actually also going to very quickly answer my own question. But for me personally, the reason I decided to become a professor was someone who kind of wanted to work on things that were socially relevant, like fairness and privacy, and social networks, and understanding all of those issues was when I was on close to being on the job market, I was trying to think about what am I good at and where am I going to have more of an impact? Am I going to have more of an impact if I go to a nonprofit or industry? It's no, probably not, because my toolkit is how can I rather than like, spend time on the ground trying to come up with like a solution as soon as possible that's going to be as impactful as possible, as fast as possible. The thing that I'm good at, and I've always been good at, is fundamental tools that allow me to care for like to keep thinking very deeply about a problem for potentially a long time. And I felt like personally that like the place where I could do the most social good was trying to really, really deeply think about problems that I care about socially on the one hand, and the fact that by actually going to academia, I could also give other people the tools to do these things by teaching, by mentoring, by guiding students on research. That was one of the reasons why I, in the end, decided to go there, just at a high level. And yeah, so now the next thing that I want to do, because I also want everyone to have a break and also some time to set up for the doctoral consortium posters, I want to open the floor to everyone. I want to kind of like hear what questions that you have for the panelists that are about, yeah, anything, social impact, job market, careers, yeah. So it's all you guys. Don't be too shy. Sorry, can we put you on the mic so that, yeah, I can pass the mic now.
I was going to say I really enjoyed the panel, so thank you for sharing your experiences. I think my question, anytime you venture into interdisciplinary work, there is a learning curve in terms of coming with your own perspective and your home discipline, as you'd put it, and adopting some of the methods and perspectives that come with one, working with other people with that lens, and then also adopting it into your own work. So I guess my question is on the growth side of things, how have you all kind of approached those friction points? And then also, what were opportunities that you really saw the benefit of that start to land? So both like what were the initial challenges, I guess, with that, and then what has kind of contributed to long-term being able to do that kind of work?
To get the question, what was the initial, so the two parts of the question, can you repeat?
Yeah, so the first part would be when you're trying to open yourself up to, I guess, more interdisciplinary work with the methods as well as everything that comes with it, collaborations, adopting the perspective. What has been some of the friction points in you all kind of
Friction points.
Yeah, friction points, like where it hasn't necessarily been as smooth, or there was like a growth curve or something associated with that, to adopt it fully internally. And then the second part of that was when you kind of move past that or on projects, when you kind of start seeing the benefits and really internalizing it deeply. I don't know if that's makes sense. But.
I can start. So I think the most, I wouldn't call it necessarily friction, but the most immediate things that I deal with as I start interacting with new disciplines is what the criteria of, like, for example, as engineers, we call them maybe performance metric. The performance metrics are completely different. So one thing that is important, say to me as a say applied probability is maybe completely different to someone who is still a theoretician, but maybe they're not applied probabilists, they're a statistician. So even that, and then now when you go from a theoretician to a practitioner, say a medical doctor, then it's a completely new world. So what is important to a medical professional is going to be completely different than what's important to me. So to make it work, we like, I think the first step would be to start to see things from their perspective, so that you start appreciating what they value, and then you start adding it to what you value. And then the benefits start to take shape, because now you're basically doing this multi aligning the values. So I think that's where the benefit starts to take place. Yeah.
So as I mentioned, I moved from computer science to computational social science, but I'm still very grateful for my CS training because it gives me a deeper way to understand the tool that I use, and also keep me more attentive to the things like validity or reliability of the computational measurement that it was being used in social science. And about the friction point, I remember earlier in my when I was a junior researcher, when I talked to social scientists, they were many of them were ignore me because they feel like, oh, these are those computer scientists, that they only want to build tools, and they feel like the social phenomena is not something that I would be interested in discover. So I think so one thing is that you need to show your patient and try to kind of don't retreat, and then try to approach people in different disciplines, and try to learn to think as themselves. I try to build their mindset. And I think building the mindset is not easy. So I think early time, I think the biggest learning curve is myself, because being trained in the computational science, I tend to believe that we need to build a scientific thinking, and science is more objective. But later I realized that science itself is a discourse, is a narrative built by some community. So you need to kind of have a more fluid thinking, and adapt yourself in different communities to develop those skills to talk to different people.
Yeah, I think I just want to add 2 quick points to that. The first one is really like what Yuru just said, patience and the kind of developing the mindset. For example, I come from a kind of technical or AI background, and in a lot of my work, sometimes I work with people from HCI, for example, and a lot of times we try to collaborate with some nonprofit organization or government organizations to scope a research problem. And I take my certain kind of approach when I usually talk to these domain experts. Like I do a lot of homework ahead of time, and then think about, okay, when I chat with them on a particular problem, I might already have 3 possible answers they can think of. And then for each of those possible answers, how can I steer the conversation towards one particular research direction? And when I collaborate with some of my HCI folks on research projects, and they were like, how can you think about stuff that way? Like it's a very different kind of mindset to actually adjust. So that's one thing that takes time. Another thing is about, naturally when you work on the boundary of different research communities, it always come to evaluation. Like you have to in the end, be evaluated by some people. Like a couple of weeks ago, I just got off a very unpleasant rebuttal phase for one of my papers. And the basic reason is that, there's I think we got a certain community people from the same research community that are asking for this and that for that particular research paper. But then it's really hard to actually win that kind of argument. So what can we do? I think one of the ways I figured out is to have alternative evaluation metric for yourself and to establish that. For example, we as academics, in the end, a huge part of our KPI is to publish, but that's not the only criteria. For example, like a lot of my work, we actually work with these domain organizations to get things deployed in the real world. And that to me, value is just as high, if not more, than getting a few more research papers out. So if one source of your KPI is not meeting your hope, then you have other sources that you can try to push forward. So that's kind of my personal way of coping with this.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you. It has its perks and it has its good sides. Realistically, in a highly interdisciplinary team, there are places where you're gonna have your, like, the worst imposter syndromes will come in. That's clear. You would feel like, for example, when I got into the learning analytics team, where everybody there was purely computer sciencey and they were doing things with machine learning and AI algorithms, I was like, oh boy, what am I doing here? Right? It's that reality. There's silos in disciplines, even in interdisciplinary. But I feel like the benefits that's coming when you spend some time to understand the concepts in what they're trying to do conceptually, because the goal is not turning maybe a social scientist into a computer scientist. It's how does the concept here fit here in the framing? So most times the framing of the problem puts you in context. And then you take the context and run with it. Whatever models they're building in the algorithm design or the math of it, I don't think that's something you want to venture, but contextually. So when you sail across these disciplines, it has its perks and it has its downsides, because there's times when you reach somewhere you don't even know what to say you're doing. You don't even know who you are. You feel like an impostor and you say, I worked with the people who built this thing. And are you a rocket scientist? No. So what were you doing there, right? But then you have something that you had contributed to that. So there's like, it's something to weigh, and then you're gonna come out better. I feel that way. Yeah. So there's that reality. And then there's also the other reality that is your personal, like every day when you're going to face those really extreme mathematicians and you're like, I don't know. Okay. But that's, yeah.
So it's almost time for the next session. So we can take maybe like one last question right now, but that will be the last one. So yeah. All right, then if there is no more question, I think we can basically end it here, give everyone a break, and please come back at 6 p.m. for all of the posters.